The crystal vase exploded against the marble wall with a sound that echoed through the massive penthouse like a gunshot. Shards of glass rained down on the Persian rug, glittering under the chandelier lights like deadly diamonds. 10-year-old Katie Vance stood in the center of the chaos, her small chest heaving, her dark eyes blazing with fury that seemed too ancient for a child her age. Her blonde hair was tangled around her face, and her designer dress was torn at the hem from where she'd kicked over a side table moments before. "I hate you," she screamed at the trembling woman standing by the doorway. "I hate everyone who walks through that door. Get out, get out." The woman, the seventh nanny in 3 months, pressed herself against the wall, tears streaming down her face. She clutched her bag to her chest like a shield. This was Mrs. Patterson, a veteran childcare specialist with 20 years of experience and references from diplomats and celebrities. She had arrived that morning full of confidence. Now, barely 6 hours later, she looked like she'd survived a war zone. "Mr. Vance, I cannot," Mrs. Patterson whispered, her voice shaking. "I simply cannot do this. That child needs more than a nanny. She needs professional intervention, psychiatric help, something. I'm sorry, but I'm leaving immediately." Standing in the shadows of his home office doorway was Nathan Vance, one of the wealthiest men in America. At 38, he'd built a technology empire from nothing, revolutionizing artificial intelligence and cloud computing. Forbes had called him a genius. Business Insider had called him ruthless. But right now, watching his daughter destroy her own home while another caregiver fled in terror, he looked like nothing more than a broken, exhausted father who'd run out of answers. His jaw was tight, his expensive suit wrinkled from running his hands through his dark hair too many times. Dark circles shadowed his gray eyes. He'd been in back-to-back virtual meetings with Tokyo investors when the screaming started. Now he stood frozen, watching his only child spin further out of control while feeling completely powerless to stop it. "Mrs. Patterson, please," Nathan said quietly, his voice hoarse. "Just give it one more day. I'll double your salary, triple it, name your price." "There isn't enough money in the world, Mr. Vance," Mrs. Patterson's voice cracked. "That little girl threw a hardcover book at my head. She locked me out on the balcony in 40-degree weather for an hour. She told me she hopes I die alone and unloved." Her lips trembled. "She's 10 years old and she said those words like she meant every syllable. I have grandchildren her age. I will not subject myself to this another minute." Katie laughed, a cold sound that sent chills down Nathan's spine. "Good, leave like all the others. You're boring anyway. You smell like old people and sadness." Mrs. Patterson flinched as if she'd been slapped. Without another word, she hurried toward the elevator, practically running. The doors closed behind her with a soft chime that sounded absurdly peaceful in the aftermath of the destruction. The penthouse fell silent except for Katie's ragged breathing. Father and daughter stared at each other across the wreckage of what had once been an elegant living room. Broken glass, overturned furniture, torn cushions, the remains of a childhood spinning out of control. "Katie," Nathan began, taking one careful step forward like he was approaching a wild animal. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about." "Don't call me sweetheart," Katie's voice rose to a shriek. "You don't get to call me that. You're never here. You're always in your office or on your phone or flying somewhere. You don't care about me. You never cared, just like Mom didn't care. She left us. She left me." The words hit Nathan like physical blows. His daughter's face was red, tears now streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the rage and pain that seemed to consume her every waking moment. She was right, and they both knew it. Ever since his wife Elizabeth had died in a car accident 2 years ago, Nathan had thrown himself into work, unable to face the grief, unable to be the parent his daughter desperately needed. And Katie had descended into anger so deep it seemed to have no bottom. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world," Nathan said, his own voice breaking. "And so do I, Katie, please. I'm trying so hard to reach you, but I don't know how anymore. Tell me what you need. Tell me how to fix this." Katie's laugh was bitter, twisted. "You can't fix it. Nobody can fix it. Because nobody actually cares. They just want your money. The nannies, the therapists, the teachers, everyone, they all leave, they all give up just like you will." "I will never give up on you," Nathan said firmly, moving closer. "Never. You're my daughter. You're everything to me." "Then why aren't you ever here?" Katie screamed, and this time her voice cracked completely. The rage fell away for just a moment, revealing the terrified, heartbroken little girl underneath. "Why do you lock yourself in your office? Why do you leave me alone all the time? Why won't you look at me without looking sad? Is it because I remind you of her? Is it because you wish it was me who died instead of Mom?" Katie, no. Nathan dropped to his knees, reaching for her, but she stepped back violently, shaking her head. Don't touch me, I don't need you, I don't need anyone. She turned and ran toward her bedroom, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous penthouse. Her door slammed so hard that a framed photograph fell off the hallway wall, glass shattering on the hardwood floor. Nathan remained on his knees among the broken furniture and shattered glass, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, who made decisions affecting millions of lives, who'd built something from nothing through sheer will and intelligence. But he couldn't reach his own daughter. He couldn't save the one person who mattered most. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Another email, another crisis at the company, another demand on his time. He ignored it and pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to hold back tears that threatened to overwhelm him. 2 years since Elizabeth's death, and everything had fallen apart. The grief counselors hadn't helped. The child psychologists had quit. The expensive private schools had asked him to remove Katie after she'd gotten into fights and disrupted classes. The parade of nannies had become a bitter joke. His own parents had stopped visiting after Katie had told his mother she hated her and hoped she'd have a heart attack. Nathan had tried everything. Therapy, medication, different schools, different approaches, strict discipline, gentle patience. Nothing worked. Katie's anger only grew deeper, more destructive, more all-consuming. She was drowning in pain. And he didn't know how to save her. He was watching his daughter disappear into darkness, and he was completely powerless to stop it. His assistant, Margaret, had left a note on his desk that morning. It was the name and contact information for a grief support group that met at a community center downtown. Nathan had laughed bitterly when he'd seen it. Him, at a community center support group, he was Nathan Vance. He solved problems with money and influence and strategic thinking. He didn't sit in circles sharing feelings with strangers. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe everything he'd tried had failed because he was approaching this the wrong way. Maybe what Katie needed wasn't another credentialed professional or expensive expert. Maybe she needed something he couldn't buy. Nathan pulled out his phone and looked at Margaret's note again. The support group met on Wednesday evenings, tomorrow night. He looked around at the destruction surrounding him, thought about his daughter locked in her room, probably crying herself sick while hating herself and him and the whole world. What did he have to lose? The next evening, Nathan sat in his car outside the Riverside Community Center, watching people file inside through the plain glass doors. The building was nothing like the polished corporate environments he was used to. It was old, modest, with peeling paint and a parking lot full of regular cars, not luxury vehicles. Everything about this felt wrong, uncomfortable beneath him. But he thought about Katie's face, about the pain in her eyes, about how small she'd looked when she'd screamed at him. He thought about coming home to another destroyed room, another fleeing caregiver, another night of his daughter crying herself to sleep while pushing away everyone who tried to help. Nathan got out of the car. The support group met in a multi-purpose room with folding chairs arranged in a circle. There were maybe 15 people there, ranging from elderly couples to young adults. A banner reading, "Healing Hearts Grief Support," hung crooked on one wall. Coffee brewed in an old machine in the corner, and someone had brought cookies on a paper plate. It was so normal, so ordinary, so far removed from his usual world that Nathan almost turned around and left. But then a woman with kind eyes and gray hair smiled at him and gestured to an empty chair. "First time?" she asked gently. Nathan nodded, not trusting his voice. "That's brave," she said. "The first step is always the hardest. I'm Patricia. I lost my husband 3 years ago. These folks saved my life." The meeting started and people began sharing their stories. A young man who'd lost his brother in the military. An elderly woman whose wife had died after 52 years of marriage. A middle-aged man whose teenage son had taken his own life. Each story was raw and painful and honest in ways Nathan had never allowed himself to be. When it came to his turn, Nathan found himself talking. Really talking. Not the careful, controlled speech he used in boardrooms, but messy, honest truth about Elizabeth's death, about his failures as a father, about his daughter's rage and his own helplessness. About how he'd buried himself in work because facing his grief felt impossible. About how he'd failed Katie when she needed him most. The group listened without judgment. When he finished, his voice hoarse and his eyes damp, Patricia reached over and squeezed his hand. "Your daughter isn't broken," she said softly. "She's grieving, and she's terrified. Children that age don't have words for that kind of pain, so it comes out as anger. She's not pushing you away because she doesn't love you. She's pushing you away because she's afraid you'll leave too, like her mother did." The words hit Nathan like a revelation. Of course that was it. Katie wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to protect herself from being hurt again. By pushing everyone away first, she maintained control. She couldn't be abandoned if she was the one doing the rejecting. "But how do I reach her?" Nathan asked desperately. "How do I show her I'm not going anywhere when she won't let me near her?" An older man across the circle spoke up. He had weathered hands and a gentle voice. "My granddaughter went through something similar after her mama passed. Wouldn't talk to nobody, broke things, got mean as a snake. What finally helped was finding someone who didn't try to fix her. Someone who just sat with her in the pain, someone patient enough to wait her out." "I've hired the best therapists in the state," Nathan said. "None of them could get through to her." "Maybe she doesn't need the best," Patricia suggested. "Maybe she needs someone real, someone who's not trying to analyze her or change her, someone who can just be present without expectations." Nathan thought about that as the meeting continued. Everyone there had experienced profound loss, yet they'd found ways to keep living. Not by avoiding the pain or throwing money at it, but by facing it honestly, by supporting each other, by being patient with themselves and others. After the meeting ended, Nathan stayed to help fold chairs. Patricia approached him with a thoughtful expression. "I don't usually do this," she said, "but something tells me you need more than weekly meetings right now. I volunteer at a diner downtown 3 days a week. Martha's Place, you know it." Nathan shook his head. He didn't know any diners. He had meals delivered from high-end restaurants or ate at his private club. "There's a young woman who works there, Daisy. She's a student studying psychology, but more importantly, she's got a gift with people, especially hurting people. She's been through her own share of pain. Lost her parents when she was young, raised by her grandmother who passed last year. But she's got this calm about her, this way of seeing people clearly without judgment. The regulars at the diner, they all open up to her, even the grumpy ones." "I don't understand," Nathan said slowly. "Are you suggesting I hire a waitress to help with my daughter?" Patricia smiled. "I'm suggesting you might consider talking to someone who understands pain from the inside out. Someone who doesn't have fancy degrees but who has something maybe more valuable, genuine empathy and no agenda. Daisy works mornings, Tuesday through Saturday." That night, Nathan lay awake thinking about everything he'd heard. About Katie's grief masquerading as rage, about his own failures to be present, about the possibility that maybe what his daughter needed wasn't someone with credentials but someone with heart. The next morning, instead of going to his office, Nathan drove downtown to Martha's Place. The diner was exactly what you'd expect. Red vinyl booths, a long counter with spinning stools, the smell of coffee and bacon, regulars reading newspapers and talking about sports. And behind the counter, moving with efficient grace while chatting easily with customers, was a young woman with auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. She couldn't have been more than 23 or 24. She wore a simple uniform with a name tag that read Daisy and had the kind of smile that seemed genuine, not the professional pleasantness Nathan was used to seeing from people who wanted something from him. He watched her for a few minutes before sitting at the counter. She approached with a coffee pot and that easy smile. "Morning, coffee to start." Her voice was warm, friendly, completely unpretentious. "Please," Nathan said. As she poured, he noticed her hands were steady, her movements practiced. When she looked at him, really looked at him, there was something in her eyes that made him think Patricia had been right. This was someone who'd seen pain and come out the other side still capable of kindness. "First time at Martha's?" she asked, setting down a menu. "Is it that obvious?" She grinned. "The suit gave it away. We don't get many Wall Street types in here at 7 in the morning. But you're welcome regardless. Best pancakes in the city if you're interested." Nathan found himself relaxing slightly. There was no recognition in her eyes, no sign she knew who he was, just honest friendliness toward another customer. "I'll try them," he said. As Daisy walked away to put in his order, Nathan watched her interact with other customers. An elderly man complained about his eggs, and she remade them without fuss or irritation. A construction worker asked about her classes, and she answered while refilling his coffee, genuinely interested in the conversation. A young mother struggling with a fussy toddler found Daisy bringing the child a small cup of juice and a patient smile. She was exactly what Patricia had described. Someone with a natural gift for meeting people where they were, without judgment, without trying to fix them, just offering presence and kindness. When she brought Nathan's pancakes, he found himself saying, "Patricia from the Healing Hearts group sent me." Daisy's expression shifted slightly, becoming more thoughtful. "Patricia's wonderful, how do you know her?" "I attended my first meeting last night," Nathan admitted. "She suggested I might want to talk to you." "About?" Nathan hesitated. He'd come here on impulse, driven by desperation and Patricia's recommendation, but now he wasn't sure how to explain. How did you tell a complete stranger that your daughter was out of control, that you'd failed as a father, that you needed help from someone who had no reason to care? "My daughter," he finally said quietly. "She's 10, she's been through something terrible and I don't know how to reach her anymore. Patricia thought maybe you could help." Daisy's eyes softened with understanding, not pity. She glanced around the diner, which was starting to slow down as the morning rush ended, then slid onto the stool next to him. "Tell me about her," she said simply. And Nathan did. Sitting at that diner counter eating pancakes while morning light streamed through the windows, he told this young waitress things he hadn't told the expensive therapists. About Elizabeth's death, about Katie's descent into rage, about his own failures and fears, about watching his daughter slip away while feeling completely powerless to save her. Daisy listened without interrupting, her full attention focused on him in a way that felt unusual and precious. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Your daughter isn't trying to hurt you," she finally said. "She's trying to hurt less. Anger feels safer than sadness. Control feels safer than vulnerability. If she pushes everyone away first, then she can't be abandoned again. It's protection, not cruelty." "That's what Patricia said," Nathan replied, "but knowing that doesn't help me reach her." "Because you can't reach someone who's hiding behind walls," Daisy said gently. "You have to wait for them to come out, and that takes patience. It takes someone willing to sit outside those walls without trying to tear them down. Someone who can be present without demands or expectations." "I've tried patience," Nathan said desperately. "I've tried everything." "Have you tried just being there?" Daisy asked. Not as someone trying to fix her or help her or change her, but just as someone willing to exist in the same space. Sometimes healing doesn't look like progress. Sometimes it just looks like showing up day after day without giving up. Nathan looked at this young woman with her simple uniform and her kind eyes, and something clicked into place. She understood, not because she'd studied it in books but because she'd lived it. Patricia had been right. This was someone who could help Katie not through expertise but through genuine empathy. "Would you consider meeting her?" Nathan asked. "Just once. No obligations. I'm not asking you to be her therapist or her nanny. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to spend some time with her, to see if maybe you could reach her in a way no one else has been able to." Daisy was quiet, considering. Nathan could see her weighing the request, understanding the magnitude of what he was asking. "I'm not a professional," she said slowly. "I'm just a student and a waitress. I don't have training or credentials." "But you have something more valuable," Nathan said. "You have heart. And you've been through pain. You understand loss from the inside. That's what Katie needs. Not another expert trying to fix her, but someone real who can just be present with her." Daisy took a deep breath, then nodded slowly. "I'll meet her once. No promises beyond that, but I'll try." Relief flooded through Nathan so powerfully that his eyes stung. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." "When?" Daisy asked. Nathan thought about his daughter, home with yet another new nanny who probably wouldn't last the day. He thought about Katie's rage and pain and the walls she'd built so high. "Today," he said, "if you're willing, after your shift ends, I'll pay you for your time, whatever you want." "I don't want your money," Daisy said firmly. "If I do this, I do it because I want to help a child who's hurting, not for payment." It was the first time in years someone had refused Nathan's money. The first time someone had offered help without conditions or compensation. It was so unusual, so genuine, that Nathan found himself believing for the first time in 2 years that maybe, just maybe, there was hope. "All right," he said, "no payment, just thank you." Daisy smiled and it reached her eyes. "Let me finish my shift, meet me back here at 2, and Mr. Vance." He looked up surprised. "You know who I am?" "Of course I do, you're all over the business news, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters is that you're a dad who loves his daughter and is trying to help her. That's all I need to know." At exactly 2 o'clock, Daisy emerged from the diner in jeans and a simple sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She climbed into Nathan's car, looking calm and ready despite having no idea what she was walking into. As they drove toward his penthouse, Nathan explained more about Katie's behavior, warning Daisy about the broken objects, the screaming, the cruel words. He wanted her prepared, wanted her to understand what she was facing. Daisy listened quietly, then said something that surprised him. "She sounds terrified." "She sounds angry," Nathan corrected. "Anger is just fear in disguise," Daisy replied. "Especially in children, she's scared of being hurt again, scared of losing you too, scared of her own emotions. The rage is just armor." When they arrived at the building, the doorman greeted Nathan with obvious relief. "Mr. Vance, thank God you're back. There's been another incident." The nanny called from her car. "She's not coming back." Young Miss Katie locked her in the bathroom and told her she was going to call the police and say the nanny hit her. Nathan closed his eyes in exhausted despair. Daisy touched his arm gently. "Let's go up." The penthouse was quiet when they entered. Too quiet. Nathan's security system showed Katie was in her room. He led Daisy through the wreckage from yesterday's destruction, which the cleaning staff hadn't yet fully repaired, to Katie's bedroom door. He knocked softly. "Katie, sweetheart, I have someone here I'd like you to meet." "Go away," Katie's voice was hoarse from crying. "I don't want to meet anyone, leave me alone." Nathan looked at Daisy helplessly. This was what he faced every day, this wall of rage and pain that nothing could penetrate. But Daisy didn't look discouraged. She gestured for Nathan to step back, then sat down on the floor right outside Katie's door, her back against the wall. She didn't knock again, she didn't try to coax Katie out, she just sat there, calm and patient. Nathan watched in confusion. "What are you doing?" "Waiting," Daisy said simply. "You should probably go make some calls or something, this might take a while." "But she won't come out, she could stay in there for hours." "Then I'll wait for hours," Daisy replied peacefully. "I've got time." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to say this wouldn't work, that Katie was too far gone, that this was hopeless. But something about Daisy's calm certainty stopped him. He found himself walking away, leaving this young woman he'd just met sitting outside his daughter's room, waiting for a child who'd made a career of pushing everyone away. From his office, Nathan tried to work but found himself constantly listening, waiting for the inevitable explosion, for Katie to scream at Daisy to leave, for another failure. But the penthouse remained quiet, eerily quiet. After an hour, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked back to Katie's room and found Daisy still sitting there, her eyes closed, breathing slowly, meditating or simply resting. She opened her eyes when she heard his footsteps and smiled slightly. "Still waiting," she whispered. "This is crazy," Nathan whispered back. "She's not going to come out." "Maybe not today," Daisy agreed, "but eventually everyone does." Another hour passed. Nathan made coffee, sent emails, paced. The sun began to set, painting the city in orange and gold light, and still Daisy sat outside Katie's door, patient as stone. Then, just as Nathan was about to insist this wasn't working, he heard something. The soft click of Katie's door unlocking, then silence, then slowly the door opened a crack. Katie's face appeared in the opening. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her hair was a mess. She looked at Daisy with suspicion and confusion. "Why are you sitting out here?" Katie asked, her voice rough. Daisy opened her eyes and smiled gently. "Waiting for you." "I didn't ask you to wait." "I know. You can leave." "I could," Daisy agreed, "but I'd rather stay if that's okay with you." Katie stared at her, clearly thrown off balance. No one had ever done this before. Everyone had always tried to force their way in, to demand she talk, to insist she behave, but this stranger was just sitting there, waiting, without demands or expectations. "Why?" Katie finally asked, and her voice broke slightly. "Why would you want to stay?" Daisy's expression was infinitely gentle. "Because I think you might need a friend, and I happen to have some time. Would you mind if I sat inside instead of out here? The floor's getting kind of uncomfortable." Katie hesitated, her hand on the doorknob, clearly torn between slamming the door and something else. Finally, almost unwillingly, she opened the door wider. "Fine," she muttered, "but don't try to talk to me about feelings or any of that stupid therapy stuff." "Deal," Daisy said, standing up and walking into Katie's room as naturally as if she'd been invited to a garden party. From his office doorway, Nathan watched in absolute shock as his daughter, who hadn't let anyone into her room voluntarily in over a year, stepped aside to let a complete stranger enter. The door closed behind them, not locked this time, just gently closed. Nathan stood frozen in the hallway, his heart pounding, hardly daring to believe what he'd just witnessed. This young waitress with no credentials, no expertise, no special training had accomplished in 3 hours what trained professionals couldn't do in months. She'd gotten Katie to open the door. What happened next, Nathan didn't know. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. Real, genuine, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, his daughter could be reached after all. And all it had taken was someone willing to wait. Inside Katie's bedroom, Daisy took in her surroundings without commenting. The room was enormous, bigger than most apartments, decorated in shades of purple and silver that must have cost a fortune. A canopy bed sat in one corner, its curtains torn down and lying in a heap on the floor. Expensive toys were scattered everywhere, many of them broken deliberately, dolls with their heads pulled off, a remote control car smashed against the wall, puzzle pieces mixed together so none of the sets would ever be complete again. The walls were covered with drawings, but not the happy kind you'd expect from a 10-year-old. These were dark, angry scribbles in black and red marker, some of them covering what looked like old family photos that had been taped up and then defaced. One wall had clearly been a gallery of pictures showing Katie as a younger child with her parents. In every single photo, the mother's face had been scribbled out with black marker so violently that the paper had torn in places. Katie herself stood rigid near her window, arms crossed, watching Daisy with the suspicious eyes of someone who'd been disappointed too many times to trust easily anymore. "You can sit on the bean bag if you want," Katie said reluctantly, gesturing to a large purple bean bag chair in the corner. It was one of the few things in the room that wasn't destroyed. "But don't touch any of my stuff." "I won't," Daisy promised, settling into the bean bag with a comfortable sigh. "This is actually really nice. My apartment doesn't have any furniture this comfortable." Katie blinked, surprised. "You live in an apartment?" "A tiny one," Daisy said with a slight smile. "Just one room really, with a bathroom the size of a closet, but it's mine and I love it." "Why don't you have a big house?" Katie asked, her natural curiosity starting to peek through her defensive walls. "Don't adults have money?" "Some do," Daisy replied easily. "I'm still in school, studying psychology at the community college, and I work at Martha's Diner to pay my bills, so I don't have much money left over for fancy places. But that's okay, having less stuff means less to worry about." Katie processed this information, clearly fascinated by the idea of an adult who didn't have everything. Everyone in her world had money, power, influence. Her father's friends were all billionaires and executives. The people who came to their penthouse were always wealthy, always important, always fake. This woman sitting in her room was different, real. "Did my dad hire you?" Katie asked suddenly, her voice turning suspicious again. "He's always hiring people to fix me, therapists and tutors and nannies. They all pretend to care, but they just want his money. Are you here for money too?" "Your dad offered me money," Daisy said honestly. "But I said no, I'm here because I wanted to meet you. Patricia from the grief support group told me about you and I thought maybe we could be friends if you want to, no pressure either way." Katie's eyes narrowed. "Patricia, that old lady who won't stop talking about her dead husband?" "The same one," Daisy confirmed. "She's pretty wonderful actually. She's been helping me deal with losing my grandmother last year. Death is hard, it changes everything. Something flickered across Katie's face. Pain, recognition, vulnerability. Then the walls slammed back up. I don't want to talk about death. Okay, Daisy said simply. We don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. We can just sit here if you prefer. You'd really just sit here, doing nothing. Sure, sometimes doing nothing with someone is better than doing something alone. Katie stared at her like she was some kind of alien creature speaking a foreign language. Every adult in her life had always had an agenda: fix Katie, control Katie, change Katie, make Katie behave. But this woman was just offering to exist in the same space without demands. It was so strange that Katie didn't know how to respond. After a long silence, Katie slowly walked over to her desk and pulled out a sketchbook. She sat down on her bed, her back against the headboard, and opened the book. She didn't say anything, just started drawing with a pencil, her strokes angry and aggressive against the paper. Daisy watched quietly for a moment, then asked, "Do you like to draw?" "Sometimes," Katie muttered, not looking up. "When I'm mad, it's better than breaking stuff. The nannies always cry when I break stuff." "What do you draw when you're mad?" Katie hesitated, then turned the sketchbook around. The drawing was of a storm, dark clouds, lightning, rain that looked almost violent on the page. In the center of the storm was a small figure, just a stick person being tossed around by the wind. "That's really powerful," Daisy said softly. "The storm looks so real, like you can feel how strong it is." "That's how I feel inside," Katie said before she could stop herself. Then she snapped the book closed, angry that she'd revealed something true. "But you probably think that's stupid. All the therapists say I need to use my words instead of drawing or breaking things. They say I'm being dramatic." "I don't think it's stupid at all," Daisy replied. "I think it's honest. Sometimes pictures show truth better than words can. Feelings are too big for words sometimes, especially the hard ones." Katie looked up, meeting Daisy's eyes for the first time with something other than suspicion. "You really think so?" "I know so. When my parents died, I was 7. I couldn't talk about it for almost a year. I just drew pictures, hundreds of them. My grandmother kept every single one in a box. After she passed last year, I found the box in her closet. Looking at those drawings helped me remember that little girl who was hurting so much. It reminded me that pain doesn't last forever, even when it feels like it will." Katie's grip on her sketchbook loosened slightly. "Your parents died, both of them?" Daisy nodded. "Car accident, just like your mom. They were driving home from my aunt's house and a drunk driver hit them head-on. They died instantly." "Did you get angry?" Katie asked quietly, her voice smaller now, younger. "So angry," Daisy confirmed. "I broke my grandmother's favorite lamp. I screamed at my teacher. I told my best friend I hated her and never wanted to see her again. I was so mad at the world for taking my parents away. Mad at my parents for leaving me. Mad at myself for not being in the car with them, because at least then we'd all be together." Katie's eyes were wide now, shining with unshed tears. "That's exactly how I feel. I get so angry I can't breathe. And everyone keeps telling me to calm down or be good or think about how my dad feels. But nobody asks how I feel. Nobody understands that I'm not trying to be bad. I just hurt so much all the time and I don't know how to make it stop." The words came out in a rush, like a dam breaking, and suddenly Katie was crying. Not the angry, violent tears Nathan was used to seeing, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her small frame. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to stop the tears, trying to maintain control, but she couldn't. The pain was too big, too overwhelming. Daisy didn't move from the beanbag. She didn't rush over to hug Katie or try to comfort her with empty words. She just stayed where she was, her presence steady and calm, letting Katie cry without judgment or demands for her to stop. "It's okay to hurt," Daisy said gently. "It's okay to be angry. Your feelings are real and valid and you don't have to apologize for them. Your mom died, Katie. That's the worst thing that can happen to a kid. Of course you're hurting. Of course you're angry. Anyone would be." "But I'm so mean," Katie sobbed. "I say terrible things to people. I make the nannies cry. I make my dad look so sad. I threw a book at Mrs. Patterson's head yesterday. I'm a horrible person." "You're not horrible," Daisy said firmly. "You're in pain. There's a difference. Horrible people hurt others because they enjoy it. You hurt others because you're hurting and you don't know what else to do with all that pain. That doesn't make it right, but it does make it understandable. How did you stop being so angry? Katie asked desperately, wiping at her face with her sleeve. How did you learn to be normal again? I'm not sure I ever became normal, Daisy said with a slight smile. But I learned to live with the pain instead of fighting it all the time. I learned that grief doesn't go away, but it does get easier to carry. Like a heavy backpack, at first it feels impossible to carry. But your muscles get stronger over time, and eventually you can walk with it without falling down. Katie sniffled, processing this. Do you still miss them, your parents? Every single day, Daisy admitted. Especially on birthdays and holidays, or when something good happens and I want to tell them about it, or when I see other families together. The missing never completely goes away, but it gets gentler, less sharp, more like a sad song you can listen to without breaking down. I don't want to forget my mom, Katie whispered. Everyone keeps trying to make me put away her pictures or stop talking about her. They say I need to move on, but if I move on, doesn't that mean I'm forgetting her? Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, Daisy said softly. It means learning to carry the love and the loss together. Your mom will always be part of you, Katie. She's in your eyes, in your laugh, in the way you draw storms that are so powerful they jump off the page. Nobody can take that away from you. You don't have to let her go to keep living. Katie climbed off her bed slowly and walked over to the wall where the defaced photos hung. She stared at one picture in particular, a photo of her and her mother at the beach, both of them laughing, Katie maybe 6 years old with her mother's arms wrapped around her. She'd scribbled out her mother's face so violently that the photo was nearly destroyed. I was so mad at her, Katie said quietly, for dying, for leaving me, so I scribbled out all her pictures because I didn't want to see her face and remember how much I miss her. But now I can't see her face at all, and that makes me even sadder. Why were you mad at her? Daisy asked gently. Katie's voice was barely a whisper. Because she was supposed to pick me up from school that day, but she asked my dad to do it instead because she had to work late. If she'd picked me up like she was supposed to, she wouldn't have been on that road at that time. She wouldn't have been in the accident. She'd still be alive. It's my fault she died because she was trying to adjust her schedule around me. The confession hung in the air like poison. Katie's shoulders shook as she cried harder, the guilt she'd been carrying for 2 years finally spoken out loud. Daisy's heart broke for this child who'd been blaming herself, torturing herself, destroying herself from the inside out because of guilt that wasn't hers to carry. She stood up from the bean bag and slowly walked over to Katie, moving carefully like she was approaching a wounded animal. Katie, look at me, Daisy said gently. When Katie finally turned her tear-stained face toward her, Daisy continued, what happened to your mom was not your fault, not even a little bit. You didn't cause the accident. The drunk driver who hit her car caused the accident. Your mom changing her plans that day was just life happening, just normal parent stuff. If we blamed ourselves for every time someone changed their plans and something bad happened, we'd never survive. You cannot carry this guilt. It's not yours. But if I hadn't needed to be picked up, then something else would have happened that day or another day that would have put her on a different road at a different time. Life is random and unfair and terrible sometimes, but it's never a child's fault when a parent dies. Never. Your mom loved you more than anything. She wouldn't want you carrying this guilt. She wouldn't want you destroying yourself because of something you couldn't control. Katie collapsed against Daisy, sobbing into her shoulder, and this time Daisy wrapped her arms around the girl, holding her steady while she cried years' worth of grief and guilt and anger. They stood there for a long time, Katie crying while Daisy murmured soft reassurances, not trying to stop the tears but just being present through them. Outside the bedroom door, Nathan stood frozen. He'd come to check on them after hearing Katie's raised voice, ready to intervene if things were going wrong. But what he'd heard through the partially opened door had stopped him cold. His daughter blamed herself for Elizabeth's death. For 2 years, she'd been carrying guilt that was crushing her, and he'd never known. None of the therapists had uncovered it. None of the counselors had reached deep enough to find that poisonous belief. But Daisy had. In less than 2 hours, this young woman had gotten his daughter to reveal the core wound that had been driving all her rage and self-destruction. Nathan leaned against the wall, his own tears falling silently as he listened to his daughter finally begin to heal. Eventually, Katie's sobs quieted. She pulled away from Daisy, embarrassed by her breakdown, wiping at her face with both hands. Sorry, she mumbled. I got your shirt all wet. Shirts dry, Daisy said with a warm smile. Hearts take longer. I'm honored you trusted me enough to share what you've been carrying. Don't tell my dad, Katie said quickly, fresh panic in her eyes. Please don't tell him what I said about it being my fault. He'll just feel bad and it'll make everything worse. That's up to you, Daisy replied. But Katie, your dad loves you so much. He's been trying so hard to reach you. Maybe telling him the truth would help both of you heal. He doesn't love me, Katie said bitterly, the walls starting to go back up slightly. He's always in his office, he's always working, he barely looks at me anymore. Why do you think that is? Daisy asked. Katie shrugged, looking away. Because I remind him of her, because he wishes it was me who died instead. Or, Daisy suggested gently, maybe he's in his office all the time because being around you hurts too much. Not because he doesn't love you, but because he loves you so much that your pain makes his pain unbearable. Sometimes people hide from the things they love most when they're grieving because it's too hard to face the loss. Katie looked skeptical. That doesn't make sense. Grief rarely does, Daisy admitted. But I've seen it before. When my grandmother was dying, I avoided visiting her in the hospital because seeing her like that hurt too much. I loved her desperately, but my love made me a coward. I wasted time I could have spent with her because I was too scared of my own pain. I bet your dad is doing something similar. He's not avoiding you because he doesn't care. He's avoiding you because he cares too much and doesn't know how to handle it. Then why doesn't he just tell me that? Katie demanded. Because adults are just as scared and confused as kids sometimes, Daisy said. We're just better at hiding it. Your dad probably thinks he's protecting you by staying away. He probably thinks you're better off without him around making you sad. He's wrong, but grief makes people think all kinds of wrong things. Katie was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she asked in a small voice, do you think he really loves me, even though I'm so horrible to him? I know he does, Daisy said firmly. Nobody who didn't love you desperately would try as hard as your dad has tried to help you. He's hired therapists, changed his schedule, attended support groups, driven to random diners to ask waitresses for advice. That's not what someone does when they don't care. That's what someone does when they love their child more than anything and are terrified of losing them. Tears filled Katie's eyes again, but these were different, softer, less angry. I don't know how to stop being so mad all the time. You don't have to stop all at once, Daisy assured her. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days you'll still be angry. Some days you'll still want to break things. That's okay. The goal isn't to never feel angry again. The goal is to find healthier ways to express it so you're not hurting yourself or others. Like drawing, Katie asked. Exactly like drawing or writing or running or screaming into a pillow. Anything that lets the feeling out without causing damage. Katie looked down at her hands at the sketchbook she was still clutching. Will you come back? She asked quietly, vulnerability raw in her voice. To visit me again, or was this just a one-time thing because my dad asked you to? Daisy smiled. I'd love to come back if you want me to. We could draw together or just talk or sit quietly, whatever you need. Really? Katie's voice was full of desperate hope. You're not just saying that. Really, truly, Daisy promised. I don't say things I don't mean. That's a rule I have. So if I tell you I'll be back, I'll be back. Katie nodded slowly, then did something that shocked both Daisy and Nathan, who was still listening outside the door. She held out her hand for a pinky promise, the kind kids make when they need absolute certainty. Pinky promise? Katie asked. Daisy linked her pinky with Katie's without hesitation. Pinky promise, I'll be back. The simple gesture meant everything. It was a child's way of seeking security in an insecure world, and Daisy had honored it without mocking or dismissing it. Nathan heard his daughter let out a long, shaky breath, and he realized it might be the first time in 2 years he'd heard her sound peaceful. Can I show you something? Katie asked suddenly, walking over to her closet. She dug around in the back and pulled out a shoebox that had been hidden under old clothes. She brought it back to where Daisy was sitting and opened it carefully. Inside were treasures, a bracelet that had belonged to Katie's mother, a birthday card, a ticket stub from a movie they'd seen together, a small bottle of perfume that Katie said still smelled like her mom, photographs that hadn't been defaced, kept hidden and safe from Katie's own rage. I couldn't destroy these, Katie whispered. Even when I was so mad, these are my favorite memories of her. I look at them sometimes when everyone's asleep and I can't stop crying." Daisy looked through the items reverently, treating each one with the respect it deserved. "These are beautiful, Katie. Thank you for showing me. It means a lot that you trust me with something so important." "The nannies never got to see these," Katie said. "They never got past the first day. But you're different. You didn't try to make me be different. You just let me be sad and angry and messed up. Nobody's ever done that before." "Everyone deserves to be accepted as they are," Daisy said simply. "Especially when they're hurting. You don't need to be fixed, Katie. You need to be heard and supported while you figure out how to heal yourself. There's a big difference." They spent another hour together, looking through the memory box, with Katie sharing stories about her mother. Happy memories, sad ones, funny ones. She talked about how her mother used to braid her hair for school every morning, how she made the best chocolate chip cookies, how she sang off-key in the car and didn't care who heard, how she always kissed Katie's forehead 3 times before bed, once for yesterday, once for today, once for tomorrow. The stories poured out of Katie like water from a broken dam, and Daisy listened to every single one with full attention, laughing at the funny parts, nodding at the sad ones, asking questions that showed she genuinely cared. Nathan, still outside the door, listened to his daughter talk about Elizabeth for the first time since the funeral. He'd tried so many times to get Katie to share memories, to talk about her mother, but she'd always shut down or lashed out. Now, with this kind stranger, the memories flowed freely, and Nathan heard his late wife come alive again through their daughter's words. Finally, as the sun began to set and the room filled with orange gold light, there was a soft knock on Katie's door. Nathan entered slowly, his eyes red but his expression gentle. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly. "I just wanted to check if you two were hungry. I can order dinner, whatever you want." Katie looked at her father differently than she had in months. There was less hostility in her eyes, less rage. Instead, there was caution, yes, but also a flicker of something that might have been hope. "Pizza?" she asked tentatively. "Pizza it is," Nathan agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "Extra cheese, pepperoni, and those weird jalapenos you like even though they're too spicy for normal humans." The corner of Katie's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "They're not weird, you just have a weak tongue." It was the first joke she'd made to him in longer than Nathan could remember. The first non-hostile words. He felt like he'd been given a gift more valuable than all his billions. "My tongue is perfectly strong," Nathan protested gently. "Your taste buds are just confused." "Are not. Are too." This playful banter, so normal and everyday and precious, brought tears to Nathan's eyes. Daisy watched the exchange with a warm smile, recognizing the tentative rebuilding of a relationship that had been shattered by grief. "Daisy, will you stay for pizza?" Katie asked, turning to her with those hopeful eyes. "If it's okay with your dad," Daisy replied, looking at Nathan. "Please," Nathan said immediately. "Please stay, you're more than welcome." So Daisy stayed. They ate pizza in the living room, which was still partially destroyed from Katie's rampage the day before, but nobody mentioned it. They talked about school and art and the diner and nothing heavy or painful. Just normal conversation, the kind of family might have on any ordinary evening. Katie sat closer to her father than she had in months, not quite touching but nearby. At one point, when she reached for another slice of pizza, her hand brushed against Nathan's arm and she didn't jerk away like she usually did. It was a small thing, but to Nathan, it felt monumental. After dinner, Katie yawned. The emotional exhaustion of the day was catching up with her. "I'm tired," she admitted. "Why don't you get ready for bed?" Nathan suggested gently. "Brush your teeth, get your pajamas on, I'll come say goodnight in a few minutes." Katie nodded, then surprised everyone by walking over to Daisy and hugging her quickly. "Thank you for today," she whispered, "for listening, for understanding." "Thank you for letting me in," Daisy whispered back. "Remember, I'll be back, pinky promise." Katie nodded, satisfied, and headed to her room. Nathan walked Daisy to the door, his emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "I don't know how to thank you," he said quietly once they were in the foyer. "What you did today, what you gave my daughter, it's beyond anything I could have hoped for. She opened up to you, she shared things she's never told anyone, She smiled and joked and let me sit near her without flinching away. You performed a miracle. It wasn't a miracle, Daisy said gently. It was just patience and honesty. Katie needed someone who wouldn't judge her or try to fix her, someone who'd just be present. That's all I did. That's everything, Nathan corrected. The therapists with their degrees and certifications couldn't do what you did in one afternoon. You have a gift, Daisy, a real gift for reaching people. Daisy smiled softly. Katie did the hard work. She's the one who chose to open the door, to share her pain, to start trusting again. I just gave her a safe space to do it. But Nathan, I need you to understand something. What? He asked. Katie told me something today, something important that she's been carrying alone. Daisy hesitated, weighing whether to betray Katie's confidence, then decided the father needed to know to truly help his daughter heal. She blames herself for her mother's death. She thinks if Elizabeth hadn't changed plans to accommodate Katie's schedule that day, she wouldn't have been on that road when the accident happened. Katie has been carrying guilt that's been eating her alive. Nathan's face went white. Oh God, she thinks it's her fault. Yes, and until that guilt is addressed, really addressed, she won't fully heal. She needs to hear from you that her mother's death was not her fault. She needs reassurance that you don't blame her, that you don't wish she'd died instead. She needs to know you're not avoiding her because she reminds you of the loss, but because you're also grieving and haven't known how to do it while being her father. I never knew, Nathan said hoarsely. All this time she's been thinking, oh God, how could I not have known? Because she hid it behind anger, Daisy said gently. Anger is easier than admitting guilt and fear, but now you know, so you can help her work through it. You can start rebuilding your relationship from a place of truth instead of avoidance. Nathan nodded, wiping at his eyes. Will you really come back? She'll need you. This can't be a one-time thing. Please, Daisy, I know I said I wouldn't pay you, but let me at least compensate you for your time. You're a student working a demanding job. Your time is valuable. Daisy considered this. Her pride wanted to refuse, but practically she did need money. Student loans and rent and textbooks weren't cheap. Okay, she said finally, but not as an employee, as a friend who happens to need help with bills. If you want to help with that, I won't say no. But I'm doing this for Katie, not for payment. The help with expenses is just help, not a transaction. Agreed, Nathan said immediately. Whatever you need, and Daisy, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You gave me my daughter back today. Even if it's just a first step, it's more than I've had in 2 years. Daisy squeezed his hand gently. She never went anywhere. She was just hiding behind walls, protecting herself. Now those walls are starting to come down. Be patient with her. Some days will be harder than others. Healing isn't linear, but she wants to heal. That's the most important thing. After Daisy left, Nathan stood in his penthouse for a long moment, just breathing, just feeling something other than despair for the first time in forever. Then he walked to Katie's room and knocked softly. Come in, Katie called. She was in her bed, her hair brushed, wearing pajamas with stars on them that she'd refused to wear for months because they'd been a gift from her mother. Seeing her in them made Nathan's heart ache with bittersweet joy. He sat on the edge of her bed carefully. Can we talk for a minute? Katie nodded, looking nervous but not hostile. Katie, I heard some of what you told Daisy today, Nathan admitted, about blaming yourself for Mom's accident. Katie's eyes went wide with panic and betrayal. She promised she wouldn't tell you. She didn't break your trust, Nathan said quickly. She told me because she loves you and wants you to heal, and she knew I needed to know so I could help. But sweetheart, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What happened to your mom was not your fault, not in any way, shape, or form. It was a random, terrible, tragic accident caused by someone who made a horrible decision to drive drunk. You did nothing wrong, nothing. But if she hadn't changed her plans for me, then she would have been somewhere else at some other time, and who knows what might have happened. Nathan interrupted gently. Life is full of what-ifs, Katie. If I'd left work 5 minutes earlier, I might have been in that intersection too. If Mom had stopped for gas, she might have avoided it. If the drunk driver had taken a different road, none of it would have happened. We can't blame ourselves for chaos we couldn't control. Your mom loved you. She changed her plans because she loved being your mother. That was never a burden to her, it was a joy. Katie's lips trembled. Do you blame me? Never, Nathan said fiercely, taking her small hands in his. Not for a single second, and Katie, I need you to know something else. I'm not avoiding you because I don't love you or because you remind me of loss. I'm avoiding you because I've been drowning in my own grief and I didn't know how to be your dad and grieve at the same time. I thought if I stayed away, I'd protect you from my pain. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. All I did was make you feel more alone. Tears spilled down Katie's cheeks. I thought you wished it was me who died instead of her. Never, Nathan repeated, pulling her into his arms. You are my whole world, Katie. Losing your mom nearly destroyed me. If I'd lost you too, I wouldn't have survived. You are the reason I get up every morning, the reason I keep going. I love you more than anything in this universe, and I'm so sorry I made you doubt that. Katie sobbed into his chest, and Nathan held her tight, rocking her gently like he used to when she was little and woke up from nightmares. They cried together, father and daughter, finally sharing their grief instead of hiding from it in separate corners of their massive, lonely home. I'm sorry I've been so mean to you, Katie hiccuped. I'm sorry I broke things and said horrible stuff and made you so sad. You don't have to apologize, Nathan said. You were hurting, we both were, but we're going to do better now, okay? We're going to heal together with Daisy's help and each other's help. No more hiding, no more pretending we're okay when we're not. We face this together. Promise? Katie asked, pulling back to look at him with those red, swollen, hopeful eyes. Promise, Nathan said firmly, pinky promise. They linked pinkies just like Katie had with Daisy, sealing a new beginning with the simple gesture of childhood trust. Nathan stayed with Katie until she fell asleep, which took longer than usual because they kept talking. About Elizabeth, about memories, about feelings, about everything they'd been too afraid to discuss for 2 years. When Katie finally drifted off, still holding Nathan's hand, he sat there for another hour just watching her peaceful face, thanking whatever force in the universe had sent Daisy into their lives. His phone buzzed with work emails, crisis alerts, urgent messages from his executives. For the first time in 2 years, Nathan ignored every single one. Nothing was more important than this moment, than being present with his daughter, than honoring the fragile new beginning they'd been given. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The consistent healing, the therapy, the daily effort of rebuilding trust and connection. There would be setbacks and struggles. Katie wouldn't magically become easy overnight, but now they had hope, real hope, and a guide in Daisy who seemed to understand what they both needed better than anyone with credentials or degrees. Nathan pulled out his phone and sent a text to Daisy. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you for everything. Katie's sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, just ask. You've become family today. Daisy's response came a few minutes later. Give Katie a hug from me when she wakes up. And Nathan, take care of yourself too. Katie needs you healthy and present. See you both on Wednesday. Sweet dreams. Nathan smiled at his phone, then looked at his sleeping daughter, and for the first time since Elizabeth's death, he felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Outside the penthouse windows, the city lights glittered like stars, and somewhere in that vast urban landscape, a young waitress went home to her tiny apartment carrying the knowledge that she'd changed 2 lives today. She didn't do it with money or expertise or credentials. She'd done it with the simplest, most powerful tools in existence: patience, empathy, and the willingness to see people as they truly were without judgment or agenda. And in that moment, across the city, 3 hearts that had been broken began to slowly, carefully, tentatively mend. 3 weeks had passed since that first evening, and the Vance penthouse had begun to transform in ways both visible and invisible. The broken furniture had been repaired or replaced. The destroyed photographs had been carefully restored where possible, and new frames had been hung with pictures of Elizabeth smiling, her face no longer hidden behind angry black scribbles. Katie's room, while still chaotic in the way rooms of 10-year-olds tend to be, no longer looked like a war zone. The torn curtains had been replaced with new purple ones that Katie had picked out herself. The broken toys had been donated or thrown away, replaced by art supplies that now covered her desk in organized chaos: pencils, markers, sketchpads, watercolors. But the most significant changes weren't in the physical space, they were in the people who lived there. Katie still had hard days. Days when the anger bubbled up without warning, when the grief felt too heavy to carry, when she lashed out at her father or threw things or screamed that she hated everything. But now, instead of Nathan retreating to his office in helpless despair, he stayed. He sat with her through the storms, let her rage without trying to fix it immediately, and held her when she finally collapsed into tears. They'd started having dinner together every night, no phones allowed, just father and daughter talking about their days. Sometimes the conversations were stilted and awkward. Sometimes they flowed easily. But they happened consistently, and that consistency mattered more than perfection. Nathan had also started attending the grief support group regularly, not just that one desperate visit. Every Wednesday evening, he sat in that circle at the community center and shared his struggles, his fears, his small victories. Patricia had become a friend, as had several others in the group. For the first time in his adult life, Nathan had connections that weren't based on business or money. He had people who knew him as a grieving widower and struggling father, not as a billionaire tech mogul. The humility of it, the rawness, was healing in ways he'd never expected. And 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, Daisy came to the penthouse. She'd established a routine with Katie that the girl had come to depend on like a lifeline. Sometimes they drew together, creating art that expressed feelings too big for words. Sometimes they baked cookies in the massive kitchen that had rarely been used, making messes and laughing when things turned out lopsided or burnt. Sometimes they just talked, with Katie sharing memories of her mother or worries about school or frustrations with her father. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, reading books or doing homework side by side. Daisy never pushed, she never demanded. She simply showed up exactly when she said she would and gave Katie something precious: reliability. For a child who'd lost so much, who'd watched so many people leave, Daisy's consistency was healing all on its own. Today was a Friday afternoon in late autumn. The city outside was dressed in gold and red leaves, and a cool breeze drifted through the penthouse windows. Katie was at the kitchen table with Daisy, working on a project that had consumed her attention for the past week, a memory book about her mother. It had been Daisy's suggestion, offered carefully one afternoon when Katie had been particularly sad. What if we made something beautiful with all those memories you keep in the shoebox? Something you could look at whenever you wanted, something permanent and special. Katie had loved the idea immediately. They'd gone to an art supply store together, Katie's first real outing in months without a screaming meltdown, and picked out a leather-bound journal, special papers, colored pens, stickers, and all manner of decorating supplies. Now the kitchen table was covered with photographs, printed stories Katie had written about her favorite memories, pressed flowers from the funeral, ticket stubs, and all the treasures from the hidden shoebox. "Should I put the movie ticket here or here?" Katie asked, holding up 2 possible placements on the page she was working on. Daisy studied both options thoughtfully. "What do you think? Which one feels right to you?" "This one," Katie decided, pointing to the spot on the right side of the page. "Because then the picture of us eating popcorn can go on the left and it tells the story in order." "Perfect logic," Daisy approved. "You've got a good eye for design, Katie." Katie beamed at the praise. Compliments from Daisy meant everything because they were always genuine, never empty or manipulative. Katie had learned to trust Daisy's words completely, knowing she'd never lie or say something just to make Katie feel better. "Daisy," Katie said as she carefully glued the ticket stub in place, "can I ask you something kind of personal?" "Of course." "Do you ever feel like your parents are still with you somehow, like they're watching or something?" Daisy considered the question carefully, respecting its weight. "Sometimes yes, not in a spooky ghost way, but more like they're part of the good things I do. When I help someone at the diner who's having a hard day, I feel like my mom would be proud. She was always helping people. When I work really hard on my schoolwork, I feel like my dad would be happy because education mattered to him. It's like they live on through the values they taught me and the love they gave me. Does that make sense?" Katie nodded slowly. "I think so. Sometimes when I'm drawing, I remember how Mom used to say I had her artistic talent. And when I laugh really hard at something, Dad says I sound just like her. So maybe she's still here in those little ways." "Exactly," Daisy said warmly. "Your mom isn't gone from your life, Katie. She's just present differently now. In your memories, in your art, in the way your dad's eyes light up when you smile because you look like her. That's a kind of forever that death can't touch." "I used to hate when people said I looked like her," Katie admitted quietly, "because it made Dad so sad, but now I kind of like it. It's like carrying a piece of her with me everywhere I go." "That's beautiful," Daisy said, her own eyes misty. "She'd be so proud of the person you're becoming, Katie, so incredibly proud." Katie's cheeks flushed with pleasure. "Do you think so, even though I've been such a horrible person for so long?" "You were never horrible, you were hurt. There's a huge difference. And yes, I absolutely think she'd be proud. You're doing the hardest work there is, healing while still being just a kid. That takes real courage." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the soft scritch of glue being applied, the rustling of papers, and the distant hum of the city below. Then Katie spoke again, her voice smaller. "I'm scared of something." "What are you scared of?" Daisy asked gently, setting down her scissors to give Katie her full attention. "That I'm going to forget things about her, important things, like the sound of her voice or how her hugs felt or the way she smelled. Every day the memories get a little fuzzier, and I'm terrified that one day I won't remember her at all, that she'll just be pictures and stories but not real anymore in my mind." Daisy's heart ached at the raw fear in Katie's voice. "That's one of the hardest parts of loss," she acknowledged. "The way memories fade over time no matter how hard we try to hold on to them. But Katie, even if some details get blurry, the important stuff stays. The love doesn't fade, the impact she had on who you are doesn't disappear. And that's why this memory book is so important. You're creating something that will help you remember, that will keep the stories alive even when your memory isn't perfect." "Will you help me write down some things I'm afraid of forgetting?" Katie asked suddenly. "Stories about her that I want to remember forever." "I'd be honored to," Daisy said. So they set aside the gluing and decorating, and Katie began talking. She told stories about her mother's terrible singing voice and how she'd dance in the kitchen while making breakfast. About the way Elizabeth used to kiss Katie's scraped knees and insist the kisses had magical healing powers. About bedtime stories where Elizabeth would act out all the different character voices, no matter how silly she sounded. About the time they'd gotten lost on a hiking trail and Elizabeth had turned it into an adventure instead of being scared. About weekend mornings spent in pajamas watching cartoons and eating cereal straight from the box. Daisy wrote down every story in careful handwriting, preserving Katie's memories in ink and paper. They laughed together at the funny parts, cried at the tender ones, and celebrated the life of a woman who'd loved her daughter completely. Nathan came home early from work that day, something he'd been making an effort to do more often. He found them at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and photographs and laughter, and his heart swelled with gratitude so intense it almost hurt. This scene, his daughter happy, engaged, creating something meaningful with someone who genuinely cared, was more valuable than anything his billions had ever bought. "How's the project coming?" he asked, setting down his briefcase and loosening his tie. "Dad, look!" Katie jumped up excitedly, holding up a finished page from the memory book. It showed a photograph of Elizabeth and Katie at a park, surrounded by decorative drawings and Katie's handwritten story about that day. "We're making a whole book about Mom, with all my favorite memories and stories and everything. Daisy's been helping me write stuff down so I don't forget." Nathan took the page carefully, his vision blurring as he read his daughter's words describing a perfect autumn day at the park, complete with details about Elizabeth's laughter and the way she'd pushed Katie on the swings for hours without complaining. "This is incredible, Katie, absolutely beautiful." "You can add to it too if you want," Katie offered. "Your memories of her, maybe some stories I don't know." Daisy said the book can be from both of us. "I'd love that," Nathan said, his voice thick. "I have so many stories to share." "We're having chicken and vegetables for dinner tonight," Katie announced, already moving to the refrigerator. "Daisy showed me how to make this lemon seasoning thing that's really good. Want to help?" Nathan blinked in surprise. "You want to cook dinner together?" "Yeah," Katie said like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We do it every Friday now." Daisy says cooking is good for feelings because you have to focus on what you're doing and it's creative. Plus, we get to eat afterward, which is the best part. It was such a normal, everyday family activity, cooking dinner together, but for them, it was revolutionary. Nathan rolled up his sleeves. "Tell me what to do. I'm not much of a cook, but I can follow instructions." Katie giggled. "Don't worry, Daisy made it super simple, even you can't mess it up." "Even me," Nathan pretended to be offended. "I'll have you know I'm a highly intelligent man." "Being smart at computer stuff doesn't mean you're smart at cooking," Katie retorted with a grin. "Those are totally different skills." "She's got you there," Daisy added with a laugh. They cooked together, the three of them moving around the kitchen in coordinated chaos. Nathan chopped vegetables under Katie's critical supervision. "Dad, those pieces are too big, they need to be smaller." Katie prepared the chicken with the confidence of someone who'd been learning from Daisy. Daisy orchestrated the whole operation, teaching and guiding without taking over. When something went wrong, Nathan accidentally knocked over the olive oil, which spilled across the counter. Instead of Katie exploding in rage like she would have weeks ago, she just laughed. "Dad, you're such a disaster." "I am a disaster," Nathan agreed, scrambling for paper towels. "A disaster who loves you very much." "I love you too," Katie said, and the words were so casual, so natural, that it took Nathan a moment to realize what she'd said. She hadn't said those words to him since before Elizabeth's death, not once in 2 years. He stopped cleaning up the oil spill and just stared at his daughter, tears streaming down his face. Katie noticed and panicked slightly. "Dad, are you okay? Did I say something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," Nathan managed, his voice breaking. "You said something very, very right." Katie understood then what had affected him so deeply. She walked over and hugged him, olive oil and all. "I do love you, Dad, even when I'm being horrible and saying mean things. I always love you. I was just so angry and sad that I forgot how to show it." Nathan held his daughter tight, not caring about the mess or the dinner or anything except this moment. This precious, perfect healing moment. "I know, baby, I know, and I love you too, more than anything in the world." Daisy quietly stepped back to give them privacy, busying herself with finishing the dinner preparations while father and daughter held each other and cried happy tears in the middle of their kitchen. This was what healing looked like. Not perfect or pretty, but real and raw and beautiful in its honesty. Dinner was delicious, even with Nathan's unevenly chopped vegetables. They ate at the dining table, something they'd started doing regularly instead of Nathan eating alone in his office and Katie eating in her room. Conversation flowed easily, naturally about school and work and the memory book and plans for the weekend. "There's a fall festival at the park tomorrow," Daisy mentioned casually, "with craft booths and food trucks and live music. I was thinking about going. Katie, would you want to come? You too, Nathan. If you're free." Katie's eyes lit up. "Really, can we, Dad?" Nathan checked his mental schedule. He had a conference call with London investors, a review meeting with his development team, and about 15 other things that suddenly seemed completely unimportant compared to spending a Saturday at a fall festival with his daughter. "Absolutely," he said. "The investors can wait. This sounds much more fun." "Yes," Katie cheered. "Can we get caramel apples and maybe try the face painting? I want to get a butterfly." "We can do whatever you want," Nathan promised. "It's your day." After dinner, Katie retreated to her room to work more on her memory book, leaving Nathan and Daisy cleaning up the kitchen together. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Nathan spoke. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for us," he said quietly, scrubbing a pan. 3 weeks ago, my daughter wouldn't speak to me. She'd destroyed her room and driven away another nanny. Tonight, she told me she loved me while we cooked dinner together. That's not just progress, that's a miracle." "It's not a miracle," Daisy said gently, drying plates. "It's just what happens when people feel safe enough to start healing. Katie's always had love for you, Nathan. She just needed help finding her way back to it. And you've done amazing work too. You're present now, you're trying, that means everything to her." "I still have so far to go," Nathan admitted. "I still don't always know what to say or do. Yesterday she got frustrated with her math homework and started crying and I completely froze. I wanted to help, but I was afraid of saying the wrong thing and making it worse." "What did you do?" Daisy asked. "I just sat with her, didn't try to solve the problem or stop the tears, just sat there and told her math was hard and it was okay to be frustrated. Eventually, she calmed down enough that we could look at the problem together." "That's perfect," Daisy said warmly. "That's exactly what she needed. You're learning, Nathan. You're becoming the father Katie needs. That doesn't mean perfect, it just means present and trying." Nathan set down the pan he'd been washing and turned to face Daisy directly. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why did you say yes that first day? When I showed up at the diner asking for help with my daughter, you didn't know me, you had no reason to get involved in our messy situation. Why did you agree?" Daisy was quiet for a moment, considering. "Honestly, I saw the same desperation in your eyes that I felt after my parents died. That lost, drowning feeling of not knowing how to survive the pain. And I remembered how much it meant when my grandmother just showed up for me every day without judgment or conditions. She didn't try to fix me. She just loved me through the worst time of my life. I wanted to offer that to Katie because I know what it's like to be a kid drowning in grief. No child should have to go through that alone. You're remarkable, Nathan said softly. You know that, the way you see people, the way you meet them where they are without trying to change them, that's a gift most people never develop, and you have it naturally. Daisy smiled, a bit embarrassed. I just do what feels right, I'm not special. You are though, Nathan insisted. Extraordinarily special. Katie lights up when you walk through the door. She trusts you completely, which is something she hasn't given anyone in 2 years. You've become part of our family, Daisy, an essential part. And I want you to know that whatever you need, whenever you need it, I'm here. Not as an employer or a wealthy benefactor, but as a friend who's grateful beyond words for what you've given us. Thank you, Daisy said, genuinely touched. That means a lot, though I have to say the help with my tuition this semester meant a lot too. I was about to have to drop a class because I couldn't afford the textbooks, and your gift made it possible for me to stay on track with my degree. Nathan had quietly paid off Daisy's entire tuition bill and sent her a generous amount for books and living expenses, refusing to let her treat it as a loan. Education is important. You're going to be an incredible psychologist someday, and the world needs people like you in that field. Consider it an investment in the future mental health of countless people you'll help over the years. Still, thank you. You and Katie have given me something too, purpose, connection. Being part of your healing journey has reminded me why I wanted to study psychology in the first place, to help people find their way through pain to the other side. They finished cleaning up and Daisy prepared to leave for the evening. At the door, Katie emerged from her room to say goodbye, hugging Daisy tightly. See you tomorrow at the festival, Katie confirmed. Wouldn't miss it, Daisy promised. I'll meet you at the main entrance at 11. Perfect, wear comfortable shoes. Katie's planning to walk us to death, Nathan warned with a smile. After Daisy left, Nathan and Katie settled on the couch together with the memory book, adding Nathan's stories to the pages. He told Katie about the day she was born, how Elizabeth had cried with joy when she'd first held her daughter, about their wedding day and how Elizabeth had tripped walking down the aisle but laughed instead of being embarrassed, about silly arguments and inside jokes and the million tiny moments that made up a life shared with someone you loved. Katie drank in every word, adding details to her book, asking questions, laughing and crying as she learned more about the mother she was determined never to forget. Dad, Katie said as they were finishing up for the night, I'm really glad you found Daisy. Me too, sweetheart, me too. Do you think Mom would like her? Nathan considered this thoughtfully. I think your mom would love her, and I think she'd be so happy to see you healing, to see us healing together. That's all she ever wanted, for you to be happy and loved. I'm not all the way better yet, Katie admitted. Sometimes I still get really angry for no reason, and I still have nightmares about the accident, and sometimes I'm mean to you even when you don't deserve it. Healing isn't a straight line, Nathan reminded her, echoing Daisy's words. Some days will be harder than others, but we're moving forward, Katie, together. That's what matters. Katie nodded, then yawned hugely. I'm tired, today was a good day. It was a very good day, Nathan agreed. Go brush your teeth, I'll come tuck you in. 10 minutes later, Nathan sat on the edge of Katie's bed, pulling her covers up just like he used to when she was small. Katie looked up at him with eyes that were still sad sometimes, but no longer filled with constant rage. Dad, will you tell me about the day you and Mom met? Nathan smiled and began the story he'd told 100 times before but hadn't been able to share since Elizabeth's death. About a coffee shop and a spilled latte and a woman with a laugh that lit up the whole room. About falling in love so completely and quickly that it felt like magic. About knowing from the first conversation that he'd found his forever person. Katie listened with a soft smile, her eyes growing heavy. That's a good story, she murmured as she drifted toward sleep. A really good story. It is, Nathan agreed quietly. And you're the best part of that story, Katie. You're the best thing your mom and I ever made together, the absolute best. But Katie was already asleep, her breathing deep and even, her face peaceful in a way Nathan had despaired of ever seeing again. He sat there for a long while just watching her, his heart so full of love and gratitude and cautious hope that it almost couldn't contain it all. Downstairs, he poured himself a glass of wine and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, Daisy was in her tiny apartment, probably studying or preparing for her shift tomorrow at the diner. She had no idea how profoundly she'd changed their lives. She'd walked into their chaos with nothing but empathy and patience, and she'd helped them find their way back to each other. Nathan pulled out his phone and sent her a text. "Thank you for today, for every day. Your family now, Daisy, never forget that." Her response came a few minutes later. "You guys are family to me too. Sleep well, big day tomorrow." Nathan smiled at his phone, finished his wine, and headed to his own bedroom feeling something he hadn't felt in 2 years: genuine peace. Not the absence of pain, because the grief over losing Elizabeth would never fully disappear, but peace in knowing that he and Katie were going to be okay. That they'd survived the worst storm and come out the other side still able to love each other, still able to heal, still able to find joy in small moments like cooking dinner together and planning outings to fall festivals. The next morning dawned crisp and beautiful, perfect autumn weather. Katie was up early, bouncing with excitement, helping Nathan pick out casual clothes for the festival. They arrived at the park at 11 to find Daisy already waiting, dressed in jeans and a cozy sweater, her auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. Ready for adventure, Daisy greeted them with a warm smile. So ready, Katie grabbed her hand naturally, and the three of them entered the festival together. The park had been transformed into a bustling celebration of fall. Craft vendors sold handmade items from colorful tents. Food trucks offered everything from apple cider donuts to gourmet grilled cheese. A small stage hosted local musicians playing folk music. Children ran around with painted faces and balloon animals. The air smelled like cinnamon and wood smoke and possibility. Katie dragged them from booth to booth, her enthusiasm infectious. She got her face painted, a beautiful butterfly spanning both cheeks. She made a small clay sculpture at the pottery tent, declaring it a gift for Daisy. They ate caramel apples and funnel cake and roasted corn, indulging in the kind of junk food that Katie usually rejected. Nathan even tried his hand at the ring toss game, failing spectacularly but making Katie laugh so hard she nearly choked on her apple cider. At one point, while Katie was examining handmade jewelry at a craft booth, Daisy and Nathan found themselves standing together watching her. Katie was chatting animatedly with the vendor, asking questions about how the necklaces were made, her face bright with curiosity and joy. "Look at her," Nathan said softly. 3 weeks ago, she couldn't go anywhere without having a meltdown. Now she's engaging with strangers, laughing, being a normal kid. It's almost hard to believe." "She was always this kid," Daisy replied. "She was just buried under so much pain that nobody could see her. Now that pain is getting lighter and the real Katie can emerge, this bright, curious, creative girl was always there. She just needed help finding her way back." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to all of us," Daisy corrected. "Thanks to her own courage and your commitment and consistent effort. I just helped open the door. You two did the hard work of walking through it." Katie returned with a handmade bracelet she'd purchased with her allowance. "Look, it's got little butterflies on it to match my face paint." They continued exploring the festival, taking pictures together that would later be added to Katie's memory book. In one photo, all three of them were laughing at something funny Nathan had said. In another, Katie was showing off her clay sculpture with pride. In another, they were all making silly faces at the camera. Normal, happy family moments that were precious precisely because they were so ordinary. As the afternoon wore on and the sun began to set, casting everything in golden light, they found a spot on the grass to rest. Musicians on the stage were playing a gentle acoustic set, and families around them were settling in to enjoy the music. Katie lay with her head in Nathan's lap, her feet stretched toward Daisy, completely relaxed and content. "This was the best day," she announced. "The best day I've had in forever." "Me too," Nathan agreed, running his fingers gently through his daughter's hair. "Me three," Daisy added with a smile. "Can we do this again?" Katie asked. "Like make it a tradition, every year in the fall we come to the festival together." "Absolutely," Nathan promised, "every single year. Even when I'm a grown-up." "Even when you're a grown-up," Nathan confirmed, "though you'll probably be too cool to hang out with your old dad by then." Katie sat up indignantly. "I will never be too cool for you, Dad, that's ridiculous." Nathan laughed and pulled her into a hug. Good, because I'm never going to be too cool for you either, sweetheart. As they sat there in the fading light, surrounded by music and laughter and the comfortable chaos of community, Nathan realized something profound. Healing didn't happen in dramatic moments or major breakthroughs, though those certainly helped. Real healing happened in tiny increments, in shared dinners and memory books and fall festivals, in patience and consistency and the willingness to show up day after day even when it was hard, in finding people who saw you clearly and loved you anyway. In choosing to keep going even when the pain felt unbearable. They'd lost Elizabeth, and that loss would always be part of their story. But they hadn't lost each other. They'd found their way back through the darkness to connection, to love, to hope. And with Daisy's help, they'd learned that grief and joy could coexist, that healing didn't mean forgetting, and that families could be rebuilt stronger than before, even after being shattered by tragedy. As the sun set completely and the park lights came on, twinkling like stars among the trees, Katie turned to Daisy with a serious expression. "Thank you for saving us," she said quietly. Daisy shook her head gently. "I didn't save you, Katie, you saved yourself. You were brave enough to open that door the first day I sat outside it. You were brave enough to trust again, to share your pain, to start healing. That was all you." "But you helped," Katie insisted. "You showed up and didn't leave like everyone else. You kept your pinky promise." "I'll always keep my pinky promises to you," Daisy said softly. "Always." Katie smiled, satisfied, and leaned back against her father's chest, watching the musicians play their final song of the evening. She felt lighter than she had in years, like the heavy backpack Daisy had described was finally becoming bearable. The pain of losing her mother hadn't disappeared, it probably never would completely. But it no longer consumed every waking moment. It no longer turned her into someone she didn't recognize. She could carry it now alongside happiness, love, hope. She could be both grieving and growing, both sad about her mother's death and excited about tomorrow's possibilities, both wounded and healing. Life wasn't one or the other anymore, it was everything all at once, and somehow that felt manageable. As they walked back to Nathan's car through the darkening park, Katie held both her father's hand and Daisy's hand, connecting them like a bridge. Three people who'd been broken in different ways, finding wholeness together. Not perfect, not without ongoing challenges, but whole enough to keep moving forward. And really, that's all any of them needed. The strength to take the next step, the courage to stay open to connection, the hope that tomorrow might be better than today, and the knowledge that they wouldn't have to face whatever came next alone. They had each other, and for now, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth and never miss stories that remind us all of the incredible power of compassion, patience, and human connection.